Hello everybody, welcome to Lasting Spirit Travelers. Today we're talking about making flutes, Native American style flutes. And we're going to do this in a traditional way. I use routers on some flutes, but this is a traditional way. You've already seen the video of how I split an actual piece of wood that I'm going to make in the traditional way. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch that video. But let's go ahead and get on with the show. So this is an example of what I'm doing today. Taking an actual piece of wood that I found out and about. I've split it in the traditional way. This is another one. This is the one you watched on the video of me splitting. Right now I got electrical tape around there. After you split it, you want to keep it wrapped in electrical tape. And you'll notice a difference in the length and the diameter. These are examples of the same type of flutes I'm going to be making. One is a little shorter than the other one. This one's got a little smaller diameter. It's going to sound higher. I made it a little bit longer than this one. Good example is what I'm doing today is with these. This is one I've been working on, hollowing this one out. You can kind of see I got the sound block. Keep the walls about 1/4 inch. This one here is the one that I'm going to be hollowing out today in this video. You can kind of see I got the sound block already set. Never mark anything on the flute in anything other than pencil. If you mark it in a Sharpie marker, I guarantee that when you're done, you're going to see little black marks in your flute. Use a pencil. I got the basic length set at 15 inches. Yeah, the basic length on this one from the sound block to where the tentative end of the flute is going to be is 15 inches. I always make the flute longer than what I need. It gives you something to work with. The way this flute is going to be held is like this. You have to have that in mind. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sound block mark and I'm not using a Sharpie marker, I'm using a pencil. Now what I do is I got my sound block mark on there so I know what I'm going to leave and what I'm going to take. Now I highly recommend wearing gloves. You're going to be working with a wood chisel. A wood chisel will cut your finger off. I guarantee you're going to cut yourself. Everybody does. So you can kind of see here, I got my wood block, my sound block lines all set up. So at no point in time in flute culture history did the traditional flute makers ever say, I'm making a flute to the key of G. It just never happened. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Today's day and age, people use tools that are available to them. If they had a drill, they'd use it. If they had a router, they'd use it. But I like to stay pretty close to traditional ways. So what I do is I take a drill and I put a piece of tape around it, about 1/4 inch. This is just to help me get started. I just take the center of that flute doesn't have to be perfect. Do the same to the other side. After drilling it the first time, I'll put a bigger drill bit in it, not too big. So now you can see how I've drilled some of the wood out. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just stay away from the sides of the wood as much as you can. Now comes the dangerous part. You're going to use a wood chisel. Make sure it's good and sharp. Make sure you got your gloves on. What I like to do is I like to use a wood chisel that I wrapped a little rag around it for cushioning. Now I can when you get up here to the sound hole, to the sound block, you want to use the corner of your chisel and define that line. So that when you take that wood out, you end up leaving your sound block where it should be. You don't want to split that sound block. It doesn't have to be perfect yet. Just try and get as much of that wood out with the wood chisel as you can. Leave a little more than what you need on the sides of the wood. We can come back and define that later. You can kind of see how I'm defining the sound block. Just take your chisel on both sides. You want to try and make that as square as you can. Now that I got the center line of that wood out, it's a little easier to come and work taking out the sides. And remember those layers. You're taking out layer by layer. Don't try and take too much out at once. Just use the corner of that wood chisel. Watch your hands. Just keep working that wood till you get the layers out. You want all of these drill holes out. You can kind of see where a 1/4 inch is going to be. I can still take a lot of this wood out. But it's better to take it out, come back and take out more. It'll get easier as you move down. Just keep working on that. Get it all down. You'll be able to take your finger, take off your gloves, and you can feel the thickness of that wood. Kind of tell where it's at, but you got to take all this down. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. Then I got to come back here and do the back side of the sound block. I want that to be as wide as this is. So just watch your hands. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. I got this one all hauled out. This is another one I've been working on. So the next step that I'll do after I get it all hauled out is I'll take this drill with a burr on the end of it. Just trying to get all that rough wood out of there. Do the sound block hole. So you can kind of see how that smooths everything out. Got a 1/4 inch on my sidewalls. Sound block holes looking good. I'll do the other side and get back with you. Okay, so I use the rough mill. Got everything basically smoothed out. Use some sandpaper on it. And you can kind of see it's all pretty well, the texture's all about the same. 1/4 inch on the walls. Now what I like to do I like to coat it with a little bit of watered down Elmer's glue. On the sound hole, the back side, I'll just use straight Elmer's glue. Does for waterproofing. Kind of spread that Elmer's glue around there pretty good. As you play the flute, especially these natural flutes, the moisture in your breath has a tendency to affect the wood. Use the watered down Elmer's glue for the resonance chamber. Try not to get any on the side walls. If you do, just wipe it off. When this dries, I'll hit it with some sandpaper. The reason I do this is it adds a little bit of conformity to the walls of the flute. If you have a bunch of little pieces of wood sticking out, it tends to mess with the resonance of the sound. That's why a PVC flute sounds so dynamic, because the walls are so perfect. Just doing both flutes. Now we're just going to let those dry overnight. We'll pick up from there. But you can see these flute halves. It's exciting. We're making a flute out of a natural piece of wood from the forest. Just keep in mind, no matter what happens, do not get in a rush. Take your time. Take each step one by one. And we'll end up with some wonderful flutes. This, by the way, this is all cottonwood. Okay, this is the next step. So we've gotten our flutes all smoothed out inside. We coated them with watered down Elmer's glue. I've sanded it a little bit more, and those look really nice. Ready for the next step. So this next step is pretty critical. We got to decide where is the flute in the wood. So I've decided that this particular flute will be held like this. Just like this. So what I did is I marked the placement of the fetish. You can see this line. See where the sound block is. And I drew my straight line across there. This is going to be the way the flute is oriented. So what I did is I went to the inside of the sound block according to the direction of that line on the top of the flute. And this is pretty critical. So I took a marker, a sharpening marker. Yes, that's right. It's on the inside, doesn't matter. And I put 2 marks where the holes are going to be drilled. Now you got to make sure, you can see those marks are pretty small. This hole is going to be drilled out to a 1/4 inch. And I want that 1/4 inch hole to be right up to that sound block on both sides. So I put the mark where I'm going to drill it originally with a small 1/8 inch drill bit. And when I enlarge it later from the outside, after the flute is glued together, I'm going to drill it with a 1/4 inch drill bit, and the 1/4 inch hole will be right up to that sound block. Very important. So I'm going to take a small drill bit, much smaller than a 1/4 inch. can see that's much smaller than a 1/4 inch. This is a 1/4 inch. This is the size of the drill bit I'm initially going to drill with. So I take the flute. What I like to do is I like to use an awl and do a little divot that drill bit can get a hold of, so it doesn't wander on me. And I did the same thing with this flute. You see the direction of the fetish. Now we can see the original line that I drew. These holes are a little bit off, but that's okay. This is just a general reference mark. But we can see those 2 holes now, and they're right at the end of the sound block, which is what I want. Same thing on this one. We can see the general line that I drew, the end of the sound block, and where those holes are lined up. Everything that happens to this flute from here on out is going to be based on these 2 holes. So we can go ahead and glue it together. Give it a double check. Make sure you're happy with the way everything is, because once this goes together, you will no longer have access to the inside of this flute. Okay, let's talk about something else. So basically, when I put this flute together, I'm going to be able to choose where I want to drill the mouth hole and drill right through to the sound block. It's a short little distance. Pretty easy, cut and dry. But on this one, I'll show you what I've done. I have to go all the way from here, all the way down to the sound block. But you got to get that hole to come through here at just the right spot. So what I did is I taped it together, started my hole, then I continued to drill it to a 1/4 inch all the way down to the sound block. Comes out perfect right here at the sound block. Something you really got to learn, especially if you have a longer flute in the mouth section. So I drilled it, then I burn it. That just kind of waterproofs it a little bit. So that's just another part of the design aspect you have to include in your flutes. That comes with time and experience. So we're going to go ahead and glue them together. And the way that I glue them together is you want to use a wood glue, Elmer's wood glue, something like that, that's waterproof. Then just coat your flute. Once you get your flute edges all coated, you're going to do the mouth section, do the entire mouth section. All the way out to the edges. Once you get your flute edges all coated, including the mouthpiece and the sound block, I just take my finger, just kind of rub it around a little bit, make sure it's all coated really good. Make sure you focus on those knots if you have any. All it takes is a little hole as big as a pin to make your flute not work. I take my finger on the inside of the flute, make sure I don't have any gobs. When I put it together, I don't want a big bulk glue going down to the center of the flute. Make sure you don't have any loose pieces of wood on there. That sound block is coated really nice. Make sure you don't have any gobs on the inside of the flute. Now, I'm going to go ahead and coat the other flute. What I like to do is I like to let the glue sit on there for about 5 or 10 minutes. kind of get tacky a little bit. Okay, so we got the flutes are all coated. Flute halves are all coated. Double check, make sure there's no gobs of glue running down the inside. Kind of see it's coated. It's not sloppy, but it's nice. It's ready to go together. Line it up. What I like to do is use clamps on it. You don't have to wipe off the excess glue right now if you don't want to. I like to take it off. Got one section here on the knot that needs a little more glue. Now that I got it clamped, let this one dry a little bit more. I take electrical tape. And be prepared to get Elmer's glue all over your hands. That's okay. Part of the sacrifice. Pull on that tape, get that stretch in there. like to make sure I get tape on the ends of the flute. Looking good, nice tight seal. Looking good. I'll get this other one taped up and then we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, we got both flutes coated with glue, put together. They're looking mighty fine. Just remember, don't rush it. Be patient, be safe when you're working with a wood chisel. 90% of you will probably never try and make a wood flute, but they're fun to make if you happen to be walking down a trail and say, hey, there's a piece of wood that wants to be a flute. Listen to the wood, decide where the flute is, approach it methodically, do it, put it together, and they're looking pretty good. You know, let that glue dry for about 48 hours. Get good and set. And we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. Okay, so dry time's done. Got all the clamps off. Do not worry about sanding or finishing the flute. Right now, you have to sound the flute. You have to make it work. Why waste time sanding it if it's not going to work? So you can kind of see on this one here, we've got the sound holes that I've drilled previously to an 1/8 inch. Those holes are right up against the sound block. Then I drew a line straight down the flute. And I laid out my sound holes at 1 inch apart. And for this particular flute, I went to the first sound hole 3 inches from this hole. 3 inches exactly. Every hole after that is at 1 inch exactly. And I make 6-hole flutes, so there's 6 holes. I went ahead and marked them with Sharpie marker. I know I talked a little bit about that, but we're drilling this out. I've laid the flute out to be 13 inches from here to the end of the flute. Now you can see there's some continuing material after the 13 inches. There's ways that you deal with that after you get to know the flute. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to drill these holes, get the flute sounded. Same thing with this flute here. I've laid out the saddle. The saddle is exactly 2 inches, about half an inch either side of the hole. That gives the saddle enough room to rest the fetish properly. Now on this one, I'm doing this one a little differently. I'm laid the first sound hole from this hole at 3.5 inches. I did that on purpose. 1 inch after that. And what happens with the sound of the flute when you play the flute, the sound wave goes faster the further it goes down the flute. By placing your holes in certain areas of the flute, you change the dynamics of the sound. We can kind of see here, I've laid the flute out to 14 inches. And I have to sound the flute. So what I like to do is I've built me a little jig, and it holds the flute, and I built that specifically for my PVC flutes. Gives me something to hang on to with, but I can also use it for my wood flutes. So in this case, gives me something to pop the flute in to hold it in place while I drill it. And when I do the saddle for the flute, I'm going to file this down flat to create a saddle. I'll kind of show you what it looks like throughout the process. I'll show you how that mouth sound hole goes through. You gotta burn it. You don't want to waterproof it. You can see the smoke coming out of the hole there. Make sure you burn it pretty good. Start with a small drill bit, work your way up about twice. That way you don't tear out chunks of your flute. And before I drill, I took my awl and I pressed the beginning for all the holes so my drill doesn't wobble. And you want to drill that a couple of times to get the hole up to size. The final hole size will be 1/4 inch. Why is it 1/4 inch? Because the diameter of the flute walls is 1/4 inch. The hole in the center is 1 inch. Hence the holes, the finger holes, are 1 inch. The hole diameter is 1/4 inch. So I'm going to drill it a couple of times. And I'm going to drill my sound holes. Now you want to make sure when you drill these holes that you're as straight up as you can be, especially on those sound holes, the sound block holes. Going to 1/4 inch. So you can see how the holes have all been drilled to size. I'm going to file the saddle. And this is an example of what the saddle looks like. You can kind of see how I'm going to sand it flat so the fetish rides on there just perfect. Okay, I'm getting ready to sand the saddles. You'll notice that that hole has quite a thick layer in there. And I do that specifically on purpose because I gotta make that flat, and I need to keep at least 1/8 of an inch in there. So you kind of see that thickness. And that's where a file like this comes in handy. And the jig. Make sure you're keeping that saddle even. Now I've got 2 blocks of wood, 80 and 220. I used a file to take that saddle down to a certain point. You can kind of see I still got some thickness of the wall in there, and that's good. But I'm going to use the sandpaper now. You can kind of see how I'm keeping that saddle kind of even. It's at 2 inches. Perfect. I need to take it down a little bit more. You can see a little bit of the Sharpie marker I put on here. I'm going to take that out with the sanding block. Looking pretty good. I want to take out a little bit more. And I think I'm happy with that. Got a nice saddle. Do the same thing to the other one. I'll get right back with you. Kind of see the thickness of that wall. It's about a 1/4 inch now. Perfect. Okay, everybody, I got the flute sounding. I did my saddle. The other thing you have to remember is this shows you your sound hole. And the saddle is up here. You have to take and you have to file that sound hole down to about a 45 degree angle to get it to work. Gotta get that angle right there on that sound hole. This is the end of the flute. So right here on this sound hole, I had to put a bevel on it. Like blowing on a Coke bottle. Same thing with this one, that bevel. So all I have to do now is burn my holes. You want to make sure you burn your finger holes. Just take a 1/4 inch steel rod and get it hot and seal it off. It looks really nice when you're done. Sign it. I sign everything 2 bears. Sand it down. Tune it up a little bit and finish my mouthpieces. This one's going to have a beveled mouthpiece. Same with this one. So I'll show you what they look like when they're done. But that's how to make a flute. It's quite extensive. A lot into it, but once you get the mechanics down, you got it. Thanks for watching Lost in Spirit Traveler. I'll have a little piece on the end of this about playing these flutes. Thank you. Hello everybody, welcome to Alaskan Spirit Traveler. I'm Mike. I sign all my flutes 2 bears. You're going to watch a video on how I made these flutes out of a piece of cottonwood. There's 2 of them. This is what they sound like. Cottonwood. Wonderful wood to work with. Enjoy the video. Thanks for watching, Alaskan Spirit Traveler.